Hello everyone, and welcome back to Case Studies with the BizDoc. This week, it's another request that you had, Instacart, yet another Y Combinator graduate. I'm going to talk about three things this week. Point number one, the timeline of their corporate development and the money they've raised. Point two, pitfalls and important lessons they learned along the way. And finally, point number three, how on earth are they or anybody going to compete against Amazon? Because as we all know by now, Amazon bought Whole Foods and is already testing Amazon Prime grocery delivery. They've been working on that for a while. Well, how is Instacart going to weather the storm when Amazon wants to do something? It usually crushes the competition. So let's dive in. It all starts when an entrepreneur named Apurva Mehta actually leaves Amazon, of all places, where he was an engineer and claimed he was bored. He starts working on a variety of startups, and there's a lot of folklore and stories out there. Who knows which is accurate? But what is accurate is that he spent a good amount of time away from Amazon and claimed to have been working on up to 20 different ideas for companies. And he said he didn't have any passion for one of them, and finally, grocery delivery struck his heart as, well, I like to cook, I like to do things. Why can't I, as a single person, and I barely have enough time to do what I need to do, it would be convenient to get groceries delivered, and there's so many other delivery things and in the gig economy and what's going on. I want to do that. So he incubated the idea and then got together with Max Mullen and Brandon Leonardo, and the three of them are the co-founders of what becomes Instacart. Well, they go to Y Combinator and they try to get into the incubator, and there's a couple different times a year you can get into Y Combinator. There's a approval process, an application process, but they had missed the deadline. And so they were rejected. Well, being an entrepreneur, he said, I got to get in. I want to get into Y Combinator, and I want to get in now. He sent a 6-pack of IPA, this is how the story goes, to one of the founders, one of the board members, I guess, of Y Combinator. They call him the next day and said, hang on, why don't you come in? We want to talk to you a little bit further, because it occurred to them, wow, we just got this beer delivered. So first of all, thank you for the beer. Second of all, maybe there's something here. And they get placed into Y Combinator. So a gutsy, strong move, and they're into one of the greatest accelerator incubators of our age. So they graduate out of that, get about $2.3 million of seed money. Now that's pretty healthy seed. In some circles, that would be called a Series A. Nonetheless, they classified it as seed, and Sam Altman apparently being one of the investors. Of course, Sam is founder, the guy that runs Y Combinator. So away they go. They initially start in the Bay Area. It's an easy place to start. You have San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, Alameda, all these areas there where there's a lot of busy people with busy lives, congested traffic, and who in those markets wouldn't appreciate being able to get groceries delivered? And so they go out and they get a few deals together with some stores, and they're off and running. In 2013, they catch the eye of the great Vinod Khosla Ventures, and they raise $8.5 million in a true Series A. Pretty good money. And they had gotten some deals together with Safeway, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Costco. You know, the simple pitch, hey, we'll deliver for your people. They'll order it on an app, indicate what they want, and we'll be off and running. So they got some early good partners. Well, they also started getting some other investors that were very interested in what they were doing. A year later, in June of 2014, they do a Series B with Andreessen Horowitz. And what was really interesting about that is now, in 2 years since graduating the incubator, they've raised $55 million, and they're making a lot of traction and moving through, and people around Silicon Valley suddenly know that this particular business is going to be a hit, and it's a lot different than Webvan. Let me give you a little history lesson. Webvan goes way back to the dawn of the dot-com era. And there was a company named Benchmark and some others that had made very significant investment in Webvan. And what Webvan was, their concept was, we'll get the trucks, we will build the warehouse, we will put conveyor systems in the warehouse, we'll have refrigerated areas of the warehouse. So what we'll do is we'll effectively make the grocery store distribution center, and we'll have trucks. Now, that meant big, giant stacks of money required from the venture community to build all that infrastructure. Over here, shoppers are going in. You can see them there with their Instacart t-shirts. They come in, they have their list on the phone, they're getting everything for you, putting it in the basket, going through the checkout, it's charged to you, and they're gone. So now what we're talking about is the infrastructure is really now digital infrastructure, and the second infrastructure, the delivery systems, are the cars that are operated by the independent shoppers. We've now entered the gig economy where you can get a gig delivering for Instacart. So you see, way back when, tons and tons of money, and we're going to buy trucks and build infrastructure. Now it's, we'll build the digital infrastructure and the marketing to reach out to the consumer, but all that other infrastructure, it'll be the grocery stores, because they're the warehouse, and the shopper is going to go up and down the aisles and buy the stuff. And then they'll be delivered to you, and it's going to use the shopper's car, and we'll worry about paying them out of the margin we can make of the fee that you're going to pay on top of the grocery costs. So there you have it. A big, big difference in the history of Webvan. Very interesting. There's a book called, I think it's called E-Boys, the story of Benchmark Capital and what they invested in. It's an older book, but you go back and read that and you'll see the kind of the thinking, the things that happened way back when. So away they go, and a year later, they attract Kleiner Perkins Caulfield buyers. The great Kleiner Perkins, $220 million, a Series C raised in January of 15, and now we're suddenly hearing words about, hey, it's not just a $1 billion company entering the unicorn club, which is $1 billion in valuation, it's a $2 billion valuation. So now we're saying, wow, things are really happening. There's some other things that started happening here at the workforce that I'm going to come back to in a second, because it was a serious pitfall, and it is a deep question for Instacart going into the future even today. Following that, in March of 17, it is Sequoia and $400 million. Now there's a lot more than just Sequoia in there, and some of these previous investors came along for the ride and followed their previous investment and put more in, but it was Sequoia driving the Series D, $400 million and a $3.4 billion valuation. Let's take a look at that. This is 5 years, barely 5 years, and you are suddenly a $3.4 billion valuation. This is remarkable, but it's also a testimony of the new gig economy and the value you can make by building a great big consumer base of customers and what the consumer is willing to pay. At this same time, there were rumors out there that it was about a $2 billion run rate, and it had 500,000 of those consumer customers. We go one more step to the beginning of this year, 2018. In February, they announced a $200 million investment in a Series E from Cotu and Gladebook. And there was one other thing that's kind of a tongue twister. It was no mo to the IPO, said the CFO. So that's the end of our fundraising, and we anticipate our next step is an IPO. Now, when you take a look at all this and you realize there's a competition with Amazon, you could see why maybe some of the investors are going to drive toward an IPO. There's a couple reasons for that. The IPO market hasn't been particularly good, and if they could show that they are a good company making great margin with good relationship with those shoppers, which I'm going to talk about in a second, wow, we could get this out to the market, and it means this $850 million approximately that's been raised from seed through Series E, the investors will get their money back. That's the natural order of things. During the IPO, a lot of the venture capitalists, they may hold on to a little bit, but by and large, are going to sell into the IPO, it's called, and that's when they get the return on the risk and investment that they took to bring it to this level. So now you're sitting there in right now, the beginning of 2018, at a $4.2 billion valuation. That is $4.2 billion in a little less than 6 years. There is only one word for that, and that is damn. That is a big stack of money to be generating in a short amount of time. Now, I call it a stack of money because right now it's just virtual money. It's a valuation. It needs to get converted to an actual valuation after an IPO. But nonetheless, that's the number right now that you you would need at a bare minimum if you knocked on the door and you wanted to buy Instacart. So let's dive into what was going on with the workforce and some policies that were changed by Instacart. Just 3 years, 4 years in, they're discovering we have to make changes to our business model and some of the elements on that, including this critical element regarding workforce and how they're compensated. You could earn a tip as an Instacart delivery person. And there was about 80% of the deliveries included tips. Now, there was 20% of deliveries that people got no tip whatsoever. But there was also an army of the workforce, the Instacart shoppers, that prided themselves in going the extra mile for the customer. And maybe they had regular customers in there. And what happened is they were getting very good tips from people like you and me that said, you were fast, you did a nice job, you're really nice, thank you so much, here's a little something for you, on top of the fee and what the price we paid for the groceries. Well, Instacart replaced the tip with a service fee, and it gave a long explanation of, hey, we're trying to make it more certain for the level of income you're going to make at each individual delivery. We're trying to stabilize that. And let us remind you, about 20% of you don't get tips. You're not receiving tips from customers. Now the service fee's gone on there for all customers. Well, there was a big backlash there because, the better part of the workforce, that is, was delivering with some style or whatever they were doing that allowed them to be tipped by you and me, they got really annoyed. And quickly, Instacart reacted. There was an article in Recode, very big and influential journalism source here in the United States, covers the startup and technology world, among other things. And Instacart backed off. They said, okay, wait a minute. We'll put the tip back in. But then there was even more criticism because they said, well, the tip's now kind of buried and hidden here. Then they also, about that same time if I'm getting the story straight, you could also, as a customer, you could go in and you could remove the service fee that was there. So now you had Instacart shoppers that were gaming the whole system because they would give a piece of paper to the consumer that said, hey, this is how you go in and you can set the service fee to 0 and then you can also give me a tip. So they were trying to game the system. So as we look at Instacart, the workforce is a key part of it, but what do they need to be successful? Well, you need partner contracts, but you're not going to get a contract for a new grocery store unless you can say, hey, I've got a workforce that's ready to go and be delivering. Your customers right now are going to be loving this and they're going to be ordering grocery products from you and we're going to deliver them right now. And there has to be speed and value. Otherwise, those people in the new city are going to say, yeah, I've heard about Instacart, but it's not so good. So the consumers have to be, hey, great, Instacart came to my town and I shop at Trader Joe's. Fantastic, I'm going to use it. It all has to come together. But the big one in the middle, if you don't have a workforce and you can't get it delivered, you're in trouble. Now, let me share something. In a past case study, you saw me talk about Amazon and how I ordered a laptop battery. It was actually delivered to me on a Sunday, and the people that delivered it was these two individuals that were in a car, and they delivered it to me, and I said, wow, you're delivering on Sunday? But I was expecting some professional delivery service. Instead, they said, well, actually, I work for Lyft, but I also deliver for Amazon on weekends. And I was kind of shocked. Well, guess what? So to get things done, apparently Amazon's working with Lyft drivers or something, or they were also Lyft drivers, but it had to expand like that to find workforce to deliver things on a Sunday when I got a same-day battery delivery for my laptop here in Dallas. So the workforce is not to be trifled with. It's critically important that you are able to attract enough of them that you can deliver all the orders that are there. And as they've grown and as the workforce has grown, there's also been some scuttlebutt from workers saying, hey, I used to get 3 or 4 orders a day. Now my income's gone down. I don't like this tip and service fee thing. And I'm not able to get as many orders because there's more and more people doing this. So there's a lot of tensions that are here. That doesn't change the fact of what Instacart has become or the success it's had. Now, let's go a little deeper and talk about Amazon. Amazon and everybody else believes that there's gold in those hills to deliver groceries. There's a study that said only about 7% of Americans had even tried to have a grocery product of any type delivered, which is pretty amazing when you consider $2 billion in revenue, if that's correct, for Instacart and others. It also means there's a large untapped market for you and me who maybe haven't tried it yet and we want to get groceries delivered. Though the speed of this market is really picking up steam. Industries are no longer waiting for Amazon to steamroll them and then to cry and be all upset. We can already see this week that as we are in early 2018, Walmart stock just took a hit because they admitted that some of their online delivery and the things they were doing wasn't doing as well as Amazon, and they took a hit, effectively saying, hey, we're being beaten a little bit by Amazon in this area here. Also, Albertsons at this time had recently bought part of Rite Aid because they didn't want to be out in the cold as Amazon dives into being pharmacy and pharmacy delivery. They don't want to wait. Albertsons not going to sit around and wait. So two things happen. They buy Rite Aid as they're competing, and then, relevant here, they signed a 5-year deal with Instacart. Meaning, hey, Whole Foods is working with Amazon, and we can already see Amazon Prime delivering for Whole Foods, and we're not going to wait. We're making a deal with Instacart, and we need to stay ahead of Amazon. We're also buying Rite Aid. So it'll be interesting to see if Albertsons is able to successfully compete against Amazon in all of this, with a key partner being Instacart. Now then, I just mentioned Amazon and Whole Foods. There's a deal that was struck between Instacart and Whole Foods. Well, go back and look at my Toys R Us case study, and you'll see what happened to Toys R Us when they cut an extended deal with Amazon, and a very short time into it, Amazon decided that they had figured out toys and they didn't want to work with Toys R Us anymore, and they effectively reneged on the contract. They said, we're not going to do this. Toys R Us got upset, took them to court, and it was years later that Toys R Us did win and got a settlement, but the settlement was nothing compared to what they had lost in business speed, first to market, lost profits as Amazon built the toy business and absolutely kicked their butt. So if anyone thinks that once Amazon has a chance to see exactly how well and what's happening with Instacart and Whole Foods, soon as they digest that information, I am willing to bet that Amazon is just going to draw a line and say, we're done. No more, the Instacart deal, we're not using it anymore, you're not going to be here. And there might be a lawsuit, but it takes years to figure out lawsuits, and so that's one of the dangers that's there. But I'm one of the people, I don't believe that Amazon is going to stay with this Instacart contract at Whole Foods. They're already working on Prime delivery. However, the rest of the people that are being pulled into Instacart is significant. It's significant because their arms are getting longer. In the Northeast, they've got Stu Leonard's. If you know anything about Connecticut and part of New York, Stu Leonard's is a wonderful store up there known for its impeccable service. And now Instacart's going to deliver for Stu Leonard's. There's also variety up there. There's the Food Lion that's in Washington and Virginia. Let's see, what is it? Lowe's Foods. Yes, Lowe's Hardware Store has food stores in North Carolina, where the Lowe's brand is royalty. And there's a variety of other niches that Instacart's been coming to. So if Instacart can settle its workforce and settle the way that they pay them so that people feel properly compensated in a gig economy, if they can keep delivering speed and value so that they have the gross margin, and they can get these partner contracts, not only the big stores like Albertson, but continue to reach into these little ones, if they can do all that and stay ahead of Amazon, I believe they have a shot. And they're about to go public. And when they go public, all the numbers will be out there for everyone, including Amazon, to see. That's the story of Instacart, a little company that in 6 years went from zero to $4.2 billion in valuation, and is one of the few companies that appears like it has some footing to actually compete against the giant steamroller that is Amazon. Thank you for watching, and remember, we're on a mission to get to 1 million subscribers, and when we do, the first annual Valuetainment Entrepreneur Conference led by Patrick Bet-David will be held. We can't wait to do that, to deliver so much value to you that you will walk in and say, damn, that was fantastic for my business, for me, and all the customers that I'm serving. And we can't wait for that day. Until next time, I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, and I hope I left you better than I found you.